A family killer. Apparently, we all think that the worst thing a close person may do is to betray. Although there are occasions when the treachery is not considered to be the most dreadful. In fact, the scary narrative about the murderer in the family is on. Promise it will definitely make a deep impression on you. Taylor and Jane are sisters. They were brought by a mother who became a widow many years ago. Her name is Anne. In society, she's usually called Mrs. Taylor. Suffice it to mention that the sisters are very different in character. Taylor has usually been open-hearted, honest, and a bit